Hello and welcome to Mind the Flat. I'm Chris Heffernan.
I'm Tom Crowther.
And I'm Amy Isles.
And this week's episode is called Show Me the Monet.
See, this is the reaction I expected in the last episode.
So, Monet spelt M-O-N-E-T.
Oh wow, way to butcher the pun there, Chris. Why don't you spell it out?
But-
It's
Literally.
art.
But we're going to be talking about where is the money in relation to art represented by the Monet. So that's what this podcast is going to be about the arts, degrees, funding, woo up the arts. So we're going to start with our favourite piece of art. So I think we're going to kick off with Tom.
Okay, so I'm going to surprise you all. You're probably sat there thinking, oh, Tom's one is going to be a bit ridiculous. It's going to be a joke or it's going to be something standard. No, mine is highbrow. I'm going to do some Foley work here. I've got a postcard with mine on it. This is Moonrise by the Sea by Caspar David Friedrich. It's a painting, romantic painting, of a man with some nuns, I think, sat on a rock by the sea with a ship, and there's a kind of sunrise.
Thank you.
I would urge you to all go Google it.
It is lovely. It's got that. It's a romantic.
Yeah.
It's got that darkness to it.
Yeah.
The ominous, but then the light. It's.
The light at the edge of the ocean. Yeah, that's lovely.
Yeah.
I really
So
like that.
I found it when I was going through a phase. I was on Tumblr, and I found the picture on Tumblr, and I didn't know where it was from, and so my form tutor, he was one of the most influential people in terms of like my education in secondary school, and he was the technician in the art department. And so I showed him a picture and I said, look, can you try and find out who this painter is? And after a few weeks he got back to me and he found out who the guy was. And about 6 months later, James and I went interraiding around Europe, and I think it was the Berlin National Gallery. I just walked into a room and it was just there in front of me. And that I've never had that kind of visceral reaction to a piece of like fine art like that. And so I've just got that memory, like the link back to my form tutor, and then just like stumbling upon it in this gallery. And there was a whole room filled with all the paintings by the same artist, and yeah, it was great. I love it.
Wow.
Yeah,
I love
there's a
art
side of
galleries.
me that you don't often get to see.
Oh.
We should go to an art gallery at some point. I like looking around art galleries. I feel it's one place that makes me feel really kind of at peace.
It's a bit too wishy-washy for me, sorry.
Oh.
I
Soz.
No,
I
I'm
feel like
joking.
I like it in a short amount. Like if I was to spontaneously be in London and I thought, like Naomi and I were there a couple of Christmases ago and we needed something to do. I said, oh, let's just pop into maybe the Tate or the National. Pop in and you just have a little look. And there's no pressure to sort of stay all day, or you just have a quick look around, you see a few things you want to, and some of them are just magnificent, sort of the size of them. But then other times I've gone, like, I went to the Van Gogh Museum in it is in Amsterdam,
Yeah.
and I was just a bit exhausted. I'd already walked round, and lots of Van Gogh paintings, they just look like other Van Gogh paintings.
Oh.
And some of them, there's some that
Nice.
there's some you want to see, and I can really enjoy it. But I feel that it's a bit of an overload going to a gallery. There's just so many paintings, and it's just sort of, well, where do I almost start? And I think almost that's why it's so special that you had one that meant something to you, and you walk in and it's there, and it captures you, and you're in that moment with that piece of art. And it's like you wouldn't go to the theatre and watch like 6 plays back to back one after, and I almost feel that art can always be a bit overpowering because galleries are just full of it.
Yeah, I think that's just, for me, that's like, it's a little bit off-putting going to galleries.
Fair
and
enough.
feeling like you have to kind of pretend.
Not
So
enough
that's
chairs
why
for me.
this painting for me was quite a
It's
big
lovely.
thing.
I think definitely look it up.
Yeah,
It is
we'll
very beautiful.
put a link in the show notes to it, and then you can have a look.
Right, Amy, your top piece of art.
So maybe not my top piece of art, but I'm going to go down a different medium here. So I really like poetry, and that's kind of a love that's been developed since my A-levels. And one of my favourite poets is John Donne, who was 16th century 17th century poet around the time of Shakespeare. And his most famous poem is called The Flea, and it's quite humorous. It's probably quite wrong in this day and age, because it's about him trying to convince this woman to sleep with him, and he's kind of known for that style and being a bit of a womanizer. But my favourite poem of his is called A Valediction Forbidding Mourning, and I'll see if I can find a bit of it. If they be two, they are two so, as stiff twin compasses are two. Thy soul, the fixed foot, makes no show to move, but doth if the other do. And I think that's just such a beautiful metaphor, because the poem is kind of about, like, he's saying he's going away, and he's like, although I may wander, like, we'll always have that connection, like the bit at the top of a compass, and we'll always be connected wherever we are, and eventually I will always come back to you. And it's just and from a poet as well, who's kind of not known for that more sensitive side. I guess he is, but like I think The Flea is his most famous poem, and it's this kind of slutty sexual poem, and then to that in comparison, I think is just really beautiful.
Very nice. Very
I
nice
do love
juxtaposition.
Very good.
Go on then, Chris.
Right. You almost threw me then, because I was like, oh, should I bring up Oscar Wilde? But I won't. I'll go somewhere else. I won't stick in the literature. We'll go to theatre. And I think for me, it would be A Christmas Carol, which was on at the Old Vic in London last year when I saw it. So when I say last year, Christmas 2017, and it was on again this Christmas 2018 with a different cast but the same production. And it was written by the same person that's done a few TV shows, but I can't remember his name.
Is it Jack Thorne?
Jack Thorne, adapted by Jack Thorne, who did
Skins
and National Treasure and Kiri that was set in...
National Treasure?
Yeah.
As in the... I'm assuming
No,
you're
Channel
not
4
meaning...
TV series.
Not meaning the Nick Cage film.
No.
That really threw me. I was like, he's done so much amazing stuff. Wait, he's done the Nick Cage film?
No. National Treasure was a Channel 4 drama, and so was Kiri, and Kiri was set here in Bristol. But no, it summed up theatre at its best, because it looked beautiful when you came in it. And I think when we talk about art, I think we do often think of an aesthetic side, but we've all spoken, you talk about the beauty of the poetry, and it's the beauty of the image. And I think beauty is so important when we talk about art.
Yeah.
And it just looks stunning. You had all these jars with lights in, dangling down from the top of the stage. And it created a wonderful setting. And they did bits with handbells, live playing of handbells with Christmas songs. There was fake snow towards the end. It was uplifting. It was devastating. There was a bit of audience interaction, but in a nice way. You were sort of you were part of the crowd creating the feast at the end. So you had Brussels sprouts parachuting down from the upper circle, and they set a zip wire up, and a turkey came down on it. But you had those bits that were completely out of the historical context, but it didn't ruin the magic of that bit of theatre. And so I think that's what was so lovely about it. We were important as an audience, but then we were left to just watch and enjoy some really beautiful moments. And I think A Christmas Carol is such a lovely story, and I think everyone should be able to get behind it. It's not just a message for Christmas, it's a message about being a decent human being. And I just think the story is beautiful, and I'm going to read it this Christmas. But yeah, that would be one of my favourite pieces of art.
Boom, boom, boom. Mind the flat. Boom, boom, boom.
Great. So then, the arts, so dance, music, drama, are they important? Should they have a more prominent place in, say, the timetable in schools? And what do we think in the degree world? Do art students get a bad time of it? Should arts degrees not cost as much as science degrees? So let's go. Which one of you wants to kick off with some ideas?
Shall I kick us off?
You go, Amy.
Can't get my words out. Straight theatre student. So, I think in terms of funding, in both compulsory education and higher education, art certainly does get a bad rep, especially in compulsory education. Like, I think I was reading somewhere that the amount of students that take arts qualifications in secondary school is on the decline. It fell by about almost 10%, I think, from 2016 to 2017 in terms of how many students take arts A-levels. And I think there is kind of a trend of, I think it is becoming kind of seen as not as employable, not as useful, and there is a push towards more academic subjects, more scientific subjects, which is a real shame, because I think the benefits of doing art subjects are so hard to quantify, whereas like more scientific subjects has got more solid data in a way.
It's interesting. I agree, but I've always thought that out of the three that were compulsory when I was at school, music, dance and drama, slightly biased, obviously, as someone that loves theatre, but I always felt that sort of drama was necessary for everyone. And I think that whereas music and dance, I think, become that little bit more specific, that I wonder how good are they? So sort of dance, yeah, you've got the teamwork, as you maybe do group performances, and you get the performance confidence. But you can get all that in theatre, and in theatre it's about speaking. And in the majority of jobs that you would go in to do, there is an element of either customer service or presentations or being able to communicate.
This is all of this is assuming that you need to do art for some kind of purpose.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing that's probably kind of like so much of our society is like money oriented.
Yeah.
It's about like what's the benefit to society in terms of how much does it boost growth, how much does it how much does it line your pockets when you do it, like. But sometimes you don't need to be thinking about that, and so much really good art has come from just not paying any attention or even flying in the face of productivity. And I think there's a lot of value, especially like we only live our lives for a certain amount of time. We might as well kind of have some positive fun and kind of non-meaningful in the sense of like it doesn't have to have a purpose, non-purposeful and part of it. You know?
I suppose and that is the thing, that maybe music and dance people might not get into otherwise, and it might be that sort of depending on sort of their upbringing and stuff, they're not things that they're encouraged to do, and actually maybe through doing it compulsory from say year 7 or even younger, they realise they have a real passion for this and could then take it forward.
That's the thing, like with music specifically, if you don't have a family that's musical and you don't have a family that has the money to pay for music lessons every week, then it's going to be very hard. Like you could be an extremely like talented latent musician, but never have that opportunity to explore that, and you end up in a desk job working something that you actually really don't like because it doesn't fit with what you feel that you should be doing. Whereas if you have that if you get that exposure to music in school, like through a compulsory way, and the school can help you, then I think that there's a lot more of a chance that you're going to be able to find a way to do that thing with your life.
But I think it does go hand in hand with productivity. I was reading an article about a school in, I think it was in London, that was in special measures or something, and they started upping the hours of compulsory like music lessons, drama lessons, and they saw a significant difference in their results, and in their Ofsted inspections it went up to good within the space of about 2 years or something, I think. So I think yes, it has that dual effect of like, yes, it can be done for the sake of pure entertainment and enjoyment, but then I think that automatically has a positive effect on productivity in a lot of instances.
I guess everyone needs a break, don't they? And I think people don't often take the time to take that, or kind of engage other parts of their brains and if you're constantly doing maths and science and English, and you're using broadly the same parts of your brain and almost like overworking it, I guess.
But I wonder, what about those that sort of don't have that musical talent? Because say you go into a music class year 7, you've never played an instrument, and that you don't seem to have a natural ability at it. Your 2-3 hours of music classes a week probably aren't going to do much for you, and so are you going to be left behind? Are you going to feel that they're a drag, and that these classes are really beneficial when you can get stuck in? And maybe dance and drama almost lend themselves to, you can go along, I think, on the day and get quite a lot out of it. But do you think music needs that more longer
I don't
process?
Think I agree. I think you'll find some people have the same issue with drama, especially people who aren't as confident and maybe are a bit more introverted. They can go into a drama lesson and think, oh my God, this isn't for me. I'm not a performative person. But then you take them into a music class and they flourish because they're given I think it goes both ways, and there's that is why there is different strands of art, because not everything is for everyone.
But then coming back to sort of the productivity side, I would say that the skills you learn in drama are a lot more transferable and are necessary, as I said earlier, in a majority of jobs. So even if someone doesn't want to perform a character per se, I think drama can be useful for building your confidence of just speaking in front of others. So even if it wasn't, I have to play a role and pretend to be something, sort of the drama, the acting skill, there's other parts of it that just through maybe sort of playing drama games or that stuff builds that public speaking that people need. Whereas in music, it's very much focused on the skill of playing a musical instrument.
But you've also got the creativity side, I think, with music, and music is not simple. And I think you get different skills through music, like musical theory. I remember doing my music theory when I was in high school, and it was one of the most difficult exams I did, because you've got to calculate. It's quite mathematical in a way. You've got to calculate the number of beats in a bar. You've got different time signatures. You've got different clefs, and working out how to transpose a note in one clef so it sounds the same in another. It's very complex, and I think a lot of people don't realise that side of it. So it kind of, although you don't get those performative skills, you get those more kind of analytical skills maybe with music.
I'm so lost here.
But I'd say that
I'm
maybe
so out of my depth with all of this. Just for context, this is the most artistic thing I think I've ever done in my life, and this is a podcast, and we are debating. So yeah, for me, I never found the value of art at all in school. I could not wait to drop it the second that I could possibly drop it. It was never anything that I ever valued, and I don't know whether that's for better or for worse. But I can empathise with what Chris was saying actually about if you're not musical and stuck in a music class, you're wasting your time, and you're almost having a detrimental effect on that person. So I think it's kind of swings and roundabouts.
That's what I felt. I think what you say about the theory is really interesting, but we never got that at the level sort of year 7 and 8. And I remember some projects I loved doing. We did a rap project, and I can remember my friend Elliot writing about a 2-page rap. We've relied on every last word just rhyming. That was it. And it was about going to school, and it's going to be really cool.
Oh,
and it was horrendous. I've looked and looked for this rap, but I just can't find it. But if one day I ever find it again, it was hilarious. But
this is how you're going to pay Elliot back. So, for context, Elliot is the person that's so kindly done the artwork for us for this project, and Chris wants to repay him by plastering his year 8 rap over the internet. That's cool.
But that was really fun, and we had a great time. And then we did music tech, and again, it was something that anyone could build those skills. And so I completely agree that in those areas, but I just felt at other times you could feel that, oh, hang on a minute, am I just getting nowhere? Because say as soon as a keyboard was introduced, my 1 hour a week on the keyboard in a class is that's all I felt in music. And so that maybe it's about...
But some people feel like that with drama.
But what I'm just saying is that me learning a keyboard is not as transferable as being able to stand in front of a group of people and talk.
Yeah, but someone learning Shakespeare isn't, and learning the syntax and the language of Shakespeare again isn't that transferable. I think you can apply the same thing to some parts of drama. I'm saying that
that's the specifics of learning Shakespeare, but the ability to speak words to an audience is relevant to everywhere. Whereas I think that element of performance is lost in music because it's not quite the same. You're not going to...
I think there's other parts of drama some parts of drama are lost.
Oh, completely. Completely.
So, but the way that music can provide for those aspects.
I think another thing is as well that we're completely ignoring is that we're solely here talking about the performative side of drama. We're not actually talking about the potential for script writing, for like directing, for all of the other what's it? I'm sure you know what the word is. There's like
producing,
behind the stage
above
stuff.
the line and below the line. You'd call it on a film, I think. And the sort of things that you, if you're not an extroverted person, you can still really get stuck into and get a lot of value out of. Whereas with music, again, it's kind of like one-sided. It's you do this, you do that.
I still disagree. Like, you can have the composing side, you can have the technical side, and especially nowadays with modern music, you've still got, and again, we're totally disregarding, music is performed. You've still got that performative side. It's just in a different format.
I think you need a much greater depth of knowledge of music to be able to engage in those things, whereas I think you can get stuck in with the drama stuff without really having any prior knowledge to it at all. There's nowhere, like, I think barriers to entry to music are significantly higher than they are. Like, I right now would not feel comfortable doing anything musical, but I could, like, from someone that doesn't do art, like, I'm pretty much an outsider here. I would feel much more comfortable getting involved in the behind the scenes side of a drama performance, a theatre performance, or a film or anything like that, than trying to do something musical, because possibly because that's just not where my skill set lies. I don't think my skill set lies particularly in either, but I would certainly at least stand to gain more from the drama side of things than the music side of things.
I think moving it away from just music versus drama, I think you've picked up on an interesting point there that I think is often maybe lost, definitely in sort of my experience of secondary drama, of someone that loves acting and performing. There weren't many opportunities for people to get involved in the other sides of drama. I think drama at school is very much centred on acting. And I think that maybe that is another way that the people that are feeling shy and don't want to get up, they can write the script, and then almost in that they get their confidence. I've written this script, and then next year maybe I'll read 2 of those lines in the script when I do. And I think that's a nicer way of building it. Like you say, it's daunting to people to say, get up and do it. And that's other ways of building people's confidence in a team, which I think sadly is lost and maybe puts people off drama, because drama is so heavily acting. Whereas, as you've said, there's so many other sides that definitely come through when you're doing a degree. Like here in Bristol, you can study theatre and never have to act. But I don't think that comes across enough further down, and people feel that, drama means I must act.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, I agree. I think that's probably the one thing that would put me off mainly going into anything like that is, or at least in the past, has been the idea of you have to go in, you have to put yourself out there, you have to be extroverted, and obviously there's this whole perception of what like drama people are like.
And you do get them. You definitely do.
And I think that's quite off-putting for a lot of people, and you're probably losing quite a lot of talent in that industry, because people that would be really good at lighting, staging, directing don't feel comfortable or haven't had the opportunity to feel comfortable doing those kinds of things.
So taking it on to the next level, you've now got people who've chosen to do it. So they're obviously passionate about it, so it doesn't really matter what's in it. But obviously people would argue that many arts courses don't cost as much to fund, so why are they the same price as science degrees?
So I think that they should remain the same.
Same price?
The same price.
Okay.
And a lot of this is actually to do with the benefits that it would bring to science degrees.
Yeah.
And I know I said at the beginning how you don't necessarily need to have everything about productivity. There is obviously, it's a very important part of a lot of the way that people look at things. And so if you start to create a difference in the pricing of arts and sciences degrees, inevitably the way that's going to go is science degrees become more expensive, not art degrees become less expensive, because obviously they want the money and whatnot. And so that will deter people from taking the more productive routes through education. And actually a lot of those will be people that are underrepresented in specifically in STEM subjects. So women, people from ethnic minorities, people from lower income backgrounds, a lot of these people have a greater ability to study these subjects when they're in parity in terms of price with arts degrees, rather than being what they're actually costing the university, which is probably tens of thousands of pounds, not £9,000. And so if they felt that they had to pay that, maybe not immediately, but at some point, then it's gonna deter a lot of people, I think.
It creates like a two-tier system, doesn't it? And as a result of that as well, I think arts students would end up getting like a lower status, because it creates that social division as well, because only certain people can afford to do STEM degrees, and then lower income people can only afford to do arts degrees.
Yeah.
But that said, I think there does need to be a clearer breakdown of how the fees are allocated. There should be much more transparency, because my issue with arts degrees is the contact hours. Like, what are you on at the minute, Chris? 6 hours a week? 4 hours a week?
Because I'm doing my dissertation
obviously.
last year it was 11 for me.
Yeah, and I think I was 14, 15, whereas medical students, for example, they're in pretty much 9 till 5, if not longer, every day. So for the amount of tuition they're receiving for their money, it's more. But then obviously we have other as they do. There's other resources that need to be funded as well.
I guess, like, if you're a med student, you don't want to be left to your own devices to be doing stuff. Whereas
no.
for me, obviously politics isn't necessarily arts, but it's a lot closer to arts than medicine is.
Yeah.
For me, like, having my own time to go back and research and read on my own is very important. And so I don't think necessarily contact hours need to be the measurement of what the value of the degree is. And so I don't think, and whilst it isn't reflected in the cost, I don't think it needs to be.
And I think the other thing is, if you think of the contact hours that a medical student is getting, when, say, there's 1,000 of them in one lecture theatre with one lecturer, and if you look at, say, theatre, you have a 3-hour workshop where there is 10 of you with one lecturer. And actually, I think theatre departments actually get subsidised. They do not fund themselves, because they can only they can take on less pupils, because they have a smaller building, and theatre in its nature, you work in smaller groups, you need that. So it doesn't have as much money coming in, and it has a lot of things going out, because you want a variety of staff, you need to keep a building up, it needs to have a theatre, lights, all these things. So actually the theatre is one of the more expensive of arts degrees, compared to, say, I think English gets one of the hardest done by, because they have, I think, one of the lowest contact hours. I know we don't just do it by contact hours, but there's quite a lot of them, so there's quite a bit of money coming in, and, like, for example, we read a hell of a lot of books, none of them are paid for, and obviously there's not 100 books in the library for each copy.
I guess the flip side of that as well is that, yes, there's, like, it costs a lot less to do an art degree, but also there's a lot less money coming in from arts degrees to the university. So the university will get a great deal of funding for engineering projects, for science projects, for maths and that sort of thing. They'll get the funding for that will be coming from everywhere, but there's a lot less funding available for those sorts of degrees, and so it kind of balances out a little bit. So you can see that funding on from certain things can go to subsidise science degrees, and so actually the cost might not be, I don't know the actual stats on this, but the cost might not be that.
That's the thing, I think it would be nice to know those statistics when you're going into those degrees, because I think, as we've kind of concluded here, it probably does equal out, and arts degrees and science degrees should be funded in the same way, but I
free,
think...
maybe.
True, isn't it?
Sorry? Different government.
But yeah, I think it would be nice to have that breakdown so that everyone can understand where and how these degrees are funded in a way that is fair.
Yeah. I think I'm going to have to say this now. So, fees should be free.
I think they should perhaps be lower. I don't think they should be free, because at the end of the day it's your choice to go to university, and I think you should pay for tuition fees, maybe not £9,000 a year, or £925 as it is now.
For me, actually, I don't think that income should have any impact whatsoever on the level of education that you get. I don't think you should. That's why I think you shouldn't pay, is because there's no reason, there's no justification for saying that people with more money should have better access to education, because all that does is reinforces the existing inequalities. There's no moral justification for saying you need to pay more or you need to pay less because you've not had to prove yourself in any particular way.
But obviously the system that we've got, if you haven't got the money, they'll give it to you. So you get 8,000 and something as a loan that is livable on, and so should people feel deterred economically that if you get a different size loan depending on the amount of money from the home you come from, and so if you haven't got that money, you're going to be given a bigger loan.
I feel like it's not necessarily just even about the loan. Actually, it's the other costs of going to university that come along with it, the living costs as well.
I mean, that's covered by the loan.
That's very different, but yeah, to some extent, yes, but not for everyone and not for everything. And there's a lot of things that could cause some problems there. But yeah, I think, and then another thing is as well is that if you don't, and this kind of brings it back to the science and arts thing, is that if you don't leave university with a high-paying job, you're never going to pay the loan back anyway.
Yeah.
And so, and a lot of people don't. Actually, I think the projection that's done by the IFS is that only 17% of people that come out with a degree will ever pay back the full amount. 17.
Now, is that the full amount of the loan they originally took, or including all the interest?
Completely eradicate their debt, their student debt.
Wow.
Which just, it almost makes this whole conversation meaningless, because
83...
83
We're not going to pay it back anyway.
Exactly, 83% of people are just going to be continually paying back their debt, and so it makes a lot of people feel like, what's the point in getting a uni education if the reality is it's just a stepping stone, really, and quite an expensive one.
But then I would argue that if you make degrees free, you've then got to look at other systems of education. So for people that don't want to go on and do a degree, if you're going to stay and you're going to go to a company and do an apprenticeship or something, are you going to be able to apply for funding while you're doing that? Are all those things? I think you open up a whole
that's a whole other podcast, I think.
Of
can of worms.
Once university's free, what education are we then prioritising over others? You should all go to university, you shouldn't, and that's what's the point of going to university?
To be continued.
Well, I think that's an I don't think I can really conclude it necessarily. I think we've said that there are definitely worthwhile things in the arts. They shouldn't just be dismissed, and that there are some complex issues, and maybe one of the key things is just clarity in how the sciences and the arts come together. And I think that it isn't about the sciences thinking they're superior to the arts, but also that the arts and sciences need to work together. I think things like Blue Planet, Planet Earth are a great example of this. You have some amazing scientists who know so much about nature, coming together with entertainers who know the crafting of camera angles and music and sound, and that's how we educate people. I think those two things coming together, all the thing about plastics was because of an episode in Blue Planet, and that's bringing those two systems together, and I think that they just need to support one another. You can't have them without the other.
We're all different. We've all got different interests. Some of us are good at creative things and things in the arts. Some of us are more logically minded. And you need that variance, as you have very aptly described, in order to create a functioning society. Boom, boom, boom.
Thank you very much for listening.
If you want to get in contact, you can find us on Facebook. We're Mind the Flat Podcast.
On Twitter, we're at mindtheflat_pod.
On Instagram, at mindtheflat_podcast.
And if you want to respond to anything we've said in this episode or suggest a topic for another week, you can head to our Reddit, that's r/mindtheflat, and have your say there, or you can drop us an email at mindtheflatpodcast@gmail.com.
Boom, boom, boom.